So good morning. You're watching the Get Busy Livin podcast, and I'm Dr. Scott Farks from Sixth Sense Acupuncture and the Healthy Habits Club. And we've got an awesome guest this morning, and that's Terri Tonkin for Connect with Vin. And thank you very much, Terri, for joining us today on the podcast Get Busy Livin. We appreciate your time, and we hope to hear some gold nuggets come from you today.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Excellent. So we'll kick off in the usual fashion of the first question. So tell us, Terri, what gets you out of bed every morning?
These days, it's my natural body clock. So in years gone past, I was a gym goer. When I was working full-time, I would be up at ridiculous o'clock. It was always dark. And I'd head off to the gym before I went to work. And I did that for many, many years. Then when I left the public service, I just let life take its path and let my body come back to its natural sleep rhythms. Some days it's still early. I'll still wake up at 5:30 and I'll just go, why? But usually now it's a little bit later, not much. I still don't sleep till 9, 10 o'clock. I've never been able to do that. So for me, to get out of bed, I love my morning coffee. And I have my morning coffee and I'll sit and read for a short while and just enjoy the coffee, just enjoy the quiet, just enjoy the peace. So, but after that, life has its own way of taking me on a journey. So I'm a lifelong learner, so I look forward to learning something new every day.
Very cool. Very cool. So, yeah, you're sponge for knowledge. Yeah, sponge for knowledge.
I love it.
Cool.
My kids think I'm crazy, even though my kids are fully grown adults. They still think I'm crazy because I still, jump on and do short courses, or I'm always reading. Quite often I'll have 2 books on the go.
And you're always writing, huh? You're always writing.
And I'm always writing, yes.
So that's we'll go into the next question. So tell us, how did you get into Connect Within?
Connect Within actually started 7 years ago. Yeah, 7 years ago. And I'd taken on life coaching studies. And that was my business name for my life coaching. And I did that for a few years. I stepped back when my mum became unwell and I became her carer. Then when she passed in late 2019, I stepped right back and just went, I can't do this anymore. I've got to take time for me, because I'd been juggling balls for a number of years. So, when I took time out, that was at the end of 2019. Hubby was made redundant in February 2020. Think of that date. And then in March 2020, the world imploded. So it was like when hubby was made redundant, we were like, oh, beauty, we'll go traveling. A month later, that didn't happen. So it was, well, what do I do now? I can't just sit and do nothing. And I'd had some writing. I'd written my first book in 2018. In 2019, I was offered an opportunity to go into a compilation book. So in early 2020, I thought, maybe I'll do some more writing. I had a couple more opportunities in 2020, 21, and in September 21, I thought I could actually do this writing gig and get paid for it. So I turned to ghostwriting. So I write for other people, because everybody's got at least one story to tell, but every person has got a million excuses as to why they can't, won't, shouldn't, couldn't, all of those reasons. So in 21, I put it out to the universe. I did some more learning. And in, I think it was September, October 21, I put it out to the universe and let everybody know that I was ghostwriting. And I had my first client in November, which was awesome. So I kept the name Connect Within for my writing business, my ghostwriting business, because you have to connect within your heart to be able to tell your story. So I've kept that business name going.
All right. So So you've only been doing it for the last 4 years, 4 to 5
Yeah,
years, 4 to 5
bit over
years.
3 years. My riding since 2018, ghost riding since 21.
Okay, I got you. So let's reverse back. Let's do a little reversey. So
Mhm.
tell us, what did you do prior to riding? Because you
Prior
mentioned
to,
before you're a public servant. So tell us
yeah,
about it.
I've had quite a varied employment career journey, if you'd like to say. When I was in school, all I wanted to do was be a teacher. I was accepted into teaching at the end of year 12. I was also, I'd passed the public service exam, I'd passed the Commonwealth Bank exam, I'd passed the National Bank exam back in the day when you had to do entrance exams to get those positions. I was offered a job by a film laboratory who I'd been working with over the school holidays, and I'd also been accepted into the Women's Royal Australian Air Force, and I chose to go to the Defence Forces. So I joined the Defence Forces, met my hubby, still with my hubby, and after I discharged, I did retail. Then I had family. Then I went into banking and finance with Westpac. Did 14 years with Westpac. Took a redundancy from there because they wanted to put me back in a branch, and I didn't want to go back into a branch. Didn't want to deal with the public anymore. And I actually went into a government-funded program for youth working in high schools. So working with the school leavers to give them a great transition from school to further education, training or employment. And I absolutely loved that job. That was for 5 years. And then after that, I actually went and worked for the department that funded those programs. And I did 10 years in the government, federal government, and I took a redundancy from them. And I think that was probably one of the best decisions I ever made. So I've had
And
quite
that
a
was,
varied journey.
yeah, right. And so tell us about that. How did you help the kids transition?
We were working with, our program initially was working with primarily year 12s or year 10s who were making the decision to, well, at year 12, you leave school. Some year 10s were leaving school. So that's where our program initially started, was to work with those kids that would be seeking employment. But we would also make contact with all of the ones who had identified that they would go on to tertiary study, to let them know that if they'd changed their mind, that we could still work with them for 6 months. And we would work with them in, simply by doing a resume for
Yep.
some. Some didn't have any clue what they wanted to do. So we would work with them. 15, 16, 17-year-old. Go figure. Who knew what they wanted to do?
Some, so
Yeah.
most of them.
No, actually, it was amazing. Some of those kids were just phenomenal. I'll give you an example. One girl that we worked with was a very academic student. Very. She
Yep.
got an OP1. She
Wow.
got into ophthalmology.
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 Really?
She lasted 6 weeks, came back and saw us and said, that's not what I want to do. Okay, what do you want to do? I want to be a motorbike mechanic.
Wow.
She knew exactly what she wanted. She got an apprenticeship with Morgan and Wacker down in Newstead. Loved it.
Wow.
So some kids know. Some kids,
Yeah.
not so much. But
Yeah,
that was a really rewarding position, to work with those kids, to help them identify that they did have something to offer. Because a lot of them, some of them, were third generation welfare. So they had no
gotcha.
idea. And they thought that's all life had to offer, and that they didn't have anything to offer back to community. So working with those kids to find their strengths and identify where they could go, and really dig deep into what held their interest. We had some kids wanted to be a tattooist. Well, have you done art? No. Can you draw? No. Well, maybe that's something you need to look at. but they didn't know. They just didn't know where to look. So working with those kids was great. The program evolved over the years, and it became working with those who were disengaging from school. So we were working with 14-year-olds who were disengaged from education, and that was tough because mum and dad, they've got to go to grade 12. That's it. They've got to go to grade 12.
Yeah.
And I can remember having a conversation with one mum and saying, maybe not. So I worked with this young fellow with mum's permission because he was in year 11.
Yep.
So he still had two, grade 11 and grade 12. He hadn't done well in grade 9, grade 10, and he wasn't doing well in grade 11. So I had to have that hard conversation with mum and go, maybe we need to get him into some work. And hearing her, but he's got to go to year 12. And I'm like, but why? Tell me why. Well, without a year 12, he's not going to get a job. I said, all he's going to get is a certificate of participation and attendance. He's not going to get anything else. So not only did we work with kids, we had to work with mum and dad because mum and dad were, well, he's got to get an apprenticeship. Yeah, he's not going to get an apprenticeship either. But I worked with this young fellow and with mum and dad and with the school. We got him some work experience a couple of days a week and still enrolled in school. So he still had that fallback, but he still had to keep his work experience. He had to attend school two days a week as well.
Yep.
So that was good. The employer actually rang and said, can I pay him on Saturdays? Yes, you can. So he started doing Saturdays. Then the school holidays came around and the employer rang us and said, can I employ him over the school holidays? Of course you can. So he did that. Then he actually offered him a traineeship. So he was able to leave school, go into a traineeship, finished his traineeship, went on to do a welding apprenticeship and got a job over with the boat builder in Perth. So there's other ways to succeed other than getting a year 12. Sorry, parents, but there is.
Yeah.
But having someone to hold their hand, show them the way, and working with mum and dad, the student and the school, we got some fantastic outcomes from that program. It was amazing. Loved it.
Yeah, I've got a mate who actually he works for a business that just apprenticeships have changed completely now. Their assessment.
Yeah. A lot of it's competence based now.
Yeah, so they used to do a block like a month every year out of your 4-year apprenticeship, and you do a block. You have to go to TAFE or whatever institution that supplied the education for the whatever trade you're doing. But now it's totally changed. They actually do the assessments while you're working. So they actually come out to the work site and then they just assess what they're doing and make sure that they're competent in knowing what they're doing at the time so that they're using but the problem is some of the people who are doing the assessing don't have a trade. So
no, that's true. Yeah.
So they're just following the
ticking the boxes.
Yes, whatever that. Oh yeah, we have to follow this and
yeah.
So
when I left that job, I actually went and worked for the government department. That's how I got into the public service. I went into the government department that funded that program, and then I worked 10 years. Still in that youth space. I actually worked in the apprenticeship area for a while, and then I went back into the youth programs space and contract managed the organisations delivering that program, which was still great because I still got to see the outcomes.
Yeah, cool. So back it up. What about the bank? How did you? I suppose you would have done courses and stuff like that. But no.
I was in Darwin. We'd just been posted to Darwin. My husband was still in the Air Force. Yep. We'd been posted to Darwin. I'd gone into town to meet a friend who'd we'd known for a couple of years prior in our previous posting, and she was working for the Commonwealth Bank. And Darwin at the time in the mid-'80s was a very expensive place to live. And I said to my hubby, I'm going to have to get a job. This is crazy. We had 2 kids and I had my 16-year-old nephew living with me. So it was quite an expensive experience. So after lunch, I walked into the Commonwealth Bank with my girlfriend and spoke to her boss. And he said, look, we've got nothing available at the moment, but go across the road to Westpac, see how they go. So I walked across the road with my baby and just said, just want to inquire if there's any positions available. Can I fill out a form, whatever? And the young girl at the time said, sure, I'll just go and get so-and-so. Okay. So he came back and he said, do you want to come in for an interview? And I went, I'm not really prepared for an interview. I've got my baby. I don't have anything with me. He said, that's all right. We'll just have a chat. I said, okay. So I went in for an interview and had a bit of a conversation. Nothing was set in concrete or anything. He said, oh, we are looking, this is what we're looking for. I said, oh, that'd be really interesting. And I thought, when I left the interview, I thought, I better go and find out about daycare, childcare for my kids. So I went from the bank down to family daycare. And as I was going in, a lady who'd been on posting with us was coming out. And she was going in to apply to become a family daycare mum. And I was going in to apply for a position for my baby.
Yeah, put the kids
and
in there, yeah.
She said, oh, are you looking for a job? I said, no, I've just been for an interview. I'm looking for a daycare. And she said, oh, they've just knocked me back because I don't have a fence on the front. She was living on the Air Force Base and the properties weren't fenced at that time. And I said, well, how about if I get this job, you look after the boys? And she went, oh, yeah, I can do that. I got home and there was a phone call. Can you start Monday? And I went, sure.
Lucky I lined that up.
So I rang Cheryl and said,
wow.
You know what we were talking about at lunchtime? She went, yeah. And I said, well, I'll be dropping the kids off. And I got into the bank. I started on the Monday and they said, look, here's the rule books. Have a look, read through them. We'll partner you up with one of the tellers and you'll do a teller's course when one comes available. I went, cool, not a problem. That was 1986. I still haven't done a teller's course. There you go. So I worked 14 years with them, with the Westpac.
Wow. Okay.
So I actually ended up training staff, but I'd never done the course.
Never done the course. Wow.
Never done the course.
Yeah. Well, it was the 80s.
It was the 80s in Darwin.
I found out that in Darwin, they actually, on the water, there's no rules. That's not true. So anything over 24 foot, then it's considered commercial. But anything under 24 foot long, the boat, is considered personal use. So you don't need a license. You don't need registration. It's crazy.
Well, they probably figure the Crocs will take care of that.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same thing.
If anything goes wrong, the Crocs will take care of that.
Yeah, there's
no evidence.
Yeah, so and
you don't have to worry about sharks.
Wow, I was quite amazed. It's the only state in Australia that doesn't.
It's also got open road limits too.
Yeah. That I think the Stewart Highway they've stopped at 130 now. Because I went to Ayers Rock last year.
Yeah.
And the Stewart Highway they put got to do 130. But yeah, that's right. I think they've only just changed that. That's only just recent. I think if you get into South Australia, it's open.
Yeah, I think South Australia is limited.
Yeah. So there you go. And should we go back any further?
No, that's fair enough.
So
because of course I was only 10 then, right? I was only 10, married with 2 kids, working in the bank.
But you're very active. You've always been active because you're in the RAF. Is that where you learnt the discipline to exercise?
It was funny in the RAF. I was talking to my advocate the other day, and he said, "Oh, when you did PT," and I went, "No, no, no." No, it was probably because I joined in the Women's Royal Australian Air Force. If I joined 18 months later, I would have been in the Royal Australian Air Force. Because they integrated in May 1977.
Oh, I see.
It's funny, when I joined up, women didn't touch guns. But right. 1978, I had to do continuation training on the rifles. That was interesting.
Yeah, right.
But sure, look, exercise wasn't a big thing for me when I was in the Air Force. I did swim. I'd play basketball. Even in the bank in Darwin, I was in the bank basketball team. I was in the Ansett basketball team. When we were at Amberley, I was in the basketball team. Wagga, not so much. That was only 2 years. And then when we went to Newcastle, it wasn't such a thing. But when we came back up here, I had a few health issues when we first got up here. My dad had just passed as well, so I was dealing with that, dealing with my mum, a few health issues, and got out of whack for whatever reason. Yeah. So it probably wasn't about until early 2000s, 2005, I guess, and I started going back to the gym. And I ended up going to 2 gyms. So what got me out of the bed early then was getting up at 4:45 to catch either the 5:15 train into the city to go to the gym. And I would normally go into the city, meet up with a girlfriend, go for a run, then go to the boxing gym. Or I would get up at that ridiculous time and go up to Petrie and go to the gym and do a class. So I was very fit, very active, running half marathons, crazy stuff. And 2014, I did my last half. And then in 2015, I was still doing some short runs, but in 2015, I did a fair bit of damage to my back. So I had bulging discs, glute problems, all sorts. So I could barely walk. So it's taken me a long time to get through that. I've done a little bit of running on and off, but my body now, it's walking. So my endeavour, I won't say I always get there, I endeavour now to get up and do half an hour walk every morning, and that's enough for my body. So it's around about the 4,000 steps. I know you go for your 10,000. Yeah, my body says, yeah, go away. There's no competition. Not interested.
No competition.
And then I do some.
But at least you're counting them. At least you're counting them.
Yeah.
A lot of people, 95% of the population don't know how many steps they do every day.
Yeah. If I can go for that half hour walk, when I go for that half hour walk, I know that I'm pretty well set up for the day. I've got some light weights at home. I've also got some shoulder issues. Got a bursa in the shoulder, crazy stuff. Yeah. But, that's what age does to you sometimes. It kicks you. But I had a chiropractor and a physio say to me many years ago, if you stop moving, you are going to stop moving. So I endeavour to keep moving.
Get busy living. Get busy living.
Yeah, it's if you're not moving, then nothing else in your body is moving. Nothing else is working to its potential. Yeah, right. So I've also just started under DVA. I'm attending with a sports physiologist, and she has also brought in a physio who I will see today. I've got leg problems, knee problems. I've also got a bad ankle on the same side, and she believes this exercise physiologist seems to think physio may be able to help me in some way. So we'll see.
We'll see how I go. So so tell us about the writing that you do. So is there a certain type of writing you do, or is there a method that you use? Because I've heard that some writers will use certain methods from different writers.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Everybody does it differently. So for me, I write in the non-fiction genres. So for me, it's the well-being, the personal development, lifestyle, and memoir. And I also do that with the ghostwriting. I haven't ventured into fiction. I love reading fiction.
Yeah.
I haven't ventured into writing. When I write for myself, I formulate the idea in my head. I think about it and I will start. I don't necessarily have to sit down and write a plan. I sort of know where I'm going.
Yeah.
When I wrote my first book, my mentor said to me, give yourself 15 minutes a day. Whether you actually write anything, go and sit at your computer or pen and paper, whichever you prefer. But give yourself 15 minutes a day. And if you can write 15 minutes and you're okay, keep going. Well, sometimes I'd go in for my 15 minutes and an hour and a half later, I'd go, oh, I've written quite a few thousand words here. And other days I'd sit there and go, yeah, not today. It's not happening. But I would come and sit in my space. Wherever my space was, I had it set up.
Yeah, gotcha.
And it works for me. It may not work for other people. Other people have to write things down first. They literally plan it out. Whereas I get into the flow and I let it flow where it needs to go, wherever it takes me. Write it once, edit 5 times if you have to. Rather than write, edit, write, edit, write, edit, write, edit. I don't edit while I'm writing at all. I write and just let it flow. And then when I'm in flow, I let it keep going. And I use the same sort of method with my ghostwriting as well. In my own writing, I've done 2 books of my own, and I've contributed to 18 compilation books. So all of those chapters that I've done in each of those books, again, still in that genre. They're the non-fiction. They're the well-being, the lifestyle, personal development. With my ghostwriting, I love to have this sort of conversation with my clients. I can see their body language. I can hear their tone. I can hear their language. And I will record it for those same reasons. The recording goes nowhere other than my computer. Then when I write and tell their story, I'm using their words. I'm using their tone. Because if I write in my tone, it's not their story. So I try to do that as much as possible. I record, listen, watch, and then I write. I'm working with a client at the moment who, she's based in Florida, Canadian born, married to an American, and I'm sitting in Australia writing her story. But the way we're doing hers, she has done a lot of trainings, and it's been recorded on Zoom. So I'm using her Zoom and transcripts to now pull all that together to bring it into her story. Again, it's her words, it's her context, and her language. And by sharing any of my clients, by sharing their stories, even telling their stories, it's therapeutic for them, especially if it has trauma involved. It's therapeutic for them. But if they can then share their story, it can be therapeutic for somebody else. Make sense?
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah.
So my name doesn't go on their book. When I write their book becomes their book with their name on their book. If they wish to acknowledge me, my assistance, my input, beautiful. Thank you. I'll take it. My contract says I can't say who I write for or the names of the books. I can talk about topics, but I can't talk about the person or the title of the book.
So why is that? Why do you do that?
I'm a ghost writer.
Ghost.
People want
literally.
That's what it is. Some people, like Prince Harry, he had a ghostwriter. He acknowledges that. Some people want their story to be their story. And
Gotcha.
I think if they don't put their name to it, people will think it's a made up story.
Yeah.
Not made up, but not always true. But if it's their story, it's theirs.
Yeah. That's fair enough.
People
So,
have got their own reasons.
Yeah, gotcha. So, tell us about someone that you've helped put a book together from scratch. From the I don't think I can do this.
Yeah, when I put it out to the universe back in 21, and somebody I knew through networking sent me a message, and I went, I need to talk to you. Cool. We met up for a coffee. We were able to meet up for a coffee in 21. And we had a chat for about an hour, and I came home and I basically wrote her first chapter. And I sent it to her and she went, yep, sign me up. Prior to that, I had been asked to contribute to a book on domestic violence. And I went, no, I can't. I've been very blessed. I've never had to deal with it. I've never been faced with it on a personal level. So, no, I can't. And this person said to me, oh, can't you write it from your perspective? And I said, no. That goes against my integrity, because that's my perspective and it's so subjective.
Yeah.
I can't really be objective because I've never been involved.
Yeah.
That very first client was a DV survivor.
Yeah, right.
So I think by saying no to that offer opened up the universe to bring those people in, because I haven't been affected by it directly, not me. And I was able to write their story without being triggered. I could write their story with no emotion attached. It was a job. My job was to write their story. And I wasn't bringing my own perspectives, ideas, thoughts, judgments into their story. It was just their story. I worked with a gentleman over in Florida who was what we would call a financial advisor. I think they call him a broker over there. Anyway, I had worked with his daughter previous, and in a book called Get Published, and she was one of the publishers, and I'd done my story in there about ghostwriting. And she was doing a podcast, and her dad was listening. And she sent me an email later on and said, my dad was just listening to our podcast. He wants to talk to you. I said, sure, not a problem. So he did. He contacted me by email, and he said, oh, I really need help. I need to get this book done, and blah, blah. Fine, let's go. So we did a Zoom, and he had already started writing his book. So we did a bit of a different scenario there. He really needed an accountability buddy. So he said to me, book me in for 12 sessions. I'm going to get this book done. So we booked 12 calls. He sent me all the work that he'd done. I tidied it up, and I'd say to him, no, this doesn't make sense. If you're doing it just for the American audience, do the Americans understand all these terms? So I really went through and cleaned up what he had. And then by asking him more questions, he was able to add more content. And then we brought it all together and he had his book. So it was a different scenario there. But I also do that with other authors, actual authors, is that I help them. I'm not a book coach. I don't claim to be a book coach. But I also help authors work their way through what they've already got done. So there's a few different ways I help people.
Yeah, right. Okay. So have you helped publish Any books, or
I
is that
don't
you
know.
refer that on?
Publishing is not my forte.
Yeah, you
No.
refer it on.
I've published 2 of my own, and things have changed in 6 years. And with AI, it's even harder. So
Yeah,
when I write for clients, I put up front, I do not offer publishing packages. What I do is I write the manuscript. I have a list of editors. I've got a list of publishers. I've got book cover designers.
yeah,
I've got all of those connections. I can give them to you. You work with who you want to work to, but you have to also allow that in your budget for getting your book out.
yeah, right. And that's fair enough. So yeah, I suspect you get that sort of inquiry, but you just refer them on anyway.
Mm-hmm. The client that I'm working with now, she actually got referred to me through a publisher.
Yeah, gotcha.
So she knows, and I've had the Zoom call with her, and I said, now, when we get all this work done, are you going back to that publisher? Because that's only fair, because she referred you this way.
Yeah.
I won't give her any other publisher names. No.
Yeah, that's cool. Is integrity and
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's, I guess that's probably one of my big things, is that what you tell me as a client stays with me. Like if it's a personal story, personal, like I said, I can say that I've had DV survivors as clients, but I can't tell their story. I can't say what we talked about because that's their story to tell. The financial broker, again, that was his story, because he'd been through some situations where one of his staff didn't have integrity within the industry.
Yeah.
So he had to deal with that as well.
Yeah, gotcha. All right, and so tell us about what the future lies for Connect Within. What plans have you got? Have you got any books happening, or?
I released my own this year, Happiness, Your Choice to Choose, 100 Plus Ways. That was published in May. I worked on a book with our local RSL. I compiled that for them, and that was Thank You for Your Service. That was the military history of the Strathpine area. I've just had another one. I got my author copy the other day called Soulmates, and I think it's about 10 authors in that one, where we tell our story of how we met our partner and what it means to be a soulmate. So that's really beautiful, that one. And then another one is coming out. It has launched on Amazon. Paperback should be out by mid-December. And that one's called An Authentic Life. So I have a chapter in that one as well. Next year, I don't have any big plans at this stage, but like I said, I am working with a client now, which will take me through till probably the end of April. It's a big project, working through all her Zoom trainings. So that's a big one. Yeah.
Oh, righty, okay. So it's a book about Zoom training.
The work that she does, and it's the embodiment of the feminine. So she does a lot of work around that, and it's quite spiritual as well.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's different.
It will be.
So what was the inspiration for Happiness, the book that you just released this year?
It goes back 30 years. I lost my brother to suicide because he was so unhappy. And it's taken me, his passing took me on a journey. Like I said, I'm a lifelong learner, but his passing really took me into the personal development field and learning more about the human spirit and, happiness in itself. So, yeah, that was my inspiration for that one. It took me a long time to be able to. I did a chapter in 2021 for a book called Forever Changed by Suicide, and that was my story. So it's taken me a long time to be able to really be confident in talking about it. And then when I did this one, happiness, pardon me, that is the next step.
Very cool.
Mm.
Very cool. Yeah, because we've all been affected by it. We all know someone that's
It's a big
has
thing.
made that decision. Has made that decision for themselves, and I think society needs to talk about it more. So that's commendable to you for bringing that out in a book that gets the community to talk more about it.
Yeah, and the way I've gone about it is with happiness is in my very first chapter. That's my why. If I can help one person find that happiness and not wait for happiness to come, I'll be happy when. It's never going to happen. It'll be a fleeting moment. Okay, I'll be happy when I have a holiday. You've had your holiday. Now what? It's gone. Whereas if you go in here, come into your heart, you can choose it every day.
Yeah,
every day. I'm not saying that you won't have sad moments or angry moments or frustrated moments or upset moments. Of course you will. We're human beings. We'll have all of those emotions. And it's definitely okay to feel them. Absolutely feel them, because you are a human being. Don't suppress them. But out of that, go within and find happiness. It might be your morning cup of coffee. It might be reading a book. It might be just sitting by yourself for 5 minutes and grounding yourself in the water or on the grass. But look within. And what I've done with happiness is I've used the letters of the word. So H is for, and then there's habits, healthy boundaries, then there's A, P, all the letters. I've given about 11 or 12 strategies, different things that you can do. E, exercise. Get some of those endorphins running through your body. And like I said, if I go for my walk in the morning, I'm set up for the day. I'm happy. I'm good. Whatever comes, that's okay. You deal with it. But you can go within at any time and go, yep, that's there. Happiness in the heart.
Yes, definitely. I was going to say, is there anything else that you want to bring up about the business, about how you can help your clients or potential clients?
Like I said way back, everybody has at least one story in them.
Yeah.
At least one. Whether it's a personal story or a business story. And I know we've talked about it yourself, and you are a little bit restricted because of the industry that you're in. In that health industry, you have to be very, very careful. You've got rules to follow. Understandable. But if you're in business, if you're an accountant, financial broker, you've got so much information that you can share with the public. If financial broker, advisor, if you are able to write a book and highlight things for your potential customers, you're not going to give them all of your information or all of your guidance, because in that industry, rules change, regulations change. But if you were to have a potential client read your book first and go, oh, that's what I'm missing. I need to know more about that. Oh, how could I make that different? Can you guide me on how to do good investments? What are some good investments? All of that information can go into a book. And then when your potential client comes to you, they're not totally green. They've got some information that can start a conversation with you to take them further down the track and to become a client. Because when you get them face to face, then you can tell them all the good things that you can do for them. If you're a personal trainer, you could talk about some basic exercises at home, because not everybody wants to go to the gym. Not everybody wants to have a PT. But a PT would like everybody to be mobile and active. So there's, like I said, personal development, business, memoir. Everybody's got a story to tell. Everyone. At least one. Like I said, I've done almost 20 compilation books, and they're all my stories. 20 different stories.
Yeah, gotcha. So I'll go on to the third question. So tell us about your ideal client, or who would be your ideal client or avatar.
I have worked with men. Primarily it's women. Some men don't like to share stories. Yeah, funny true. That.
True.
But they've all got one, at least one. I'd say women who have had an experience, doesn't have to be traumatic, but they've had an experience that they feel would benefit others. But they have a list of excuses, reasons, challenges, hurdles, obstacles, whatever you want to call it, as to why they won't or can't write the book. It may be triggering for them to write the book, but they can talk about it in a safe place. So if you've got a story to tell and you feel that it will be benefit to one person, that has a domino effect, because that one person will go, hey, I read this story. 2 people will read it. Or one of those 2 people will go, I've got a story like that. Let's share that one. And it has that domino effect. And the more the story is shared, the more people will talk about it. The more people talk about it, the subject doesn't become taboo. It doesn't get hidden. It's part of life. Let's share it. Let's talk about it.
All right, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Terri. And I'll just move on to the last question. So tell us about some information or ideas that you could give us for providing or creating lifelong longevity.
Happiness.
Yeah,
when you feel that happiness, it gets you through the day. It makes life interesting. I've got a plover sitting less than 10 feet from my front door, but I'm going to be so happy when those little chicks come out of there because she'll be gone. But every day we go out and go, oh, I wonder if the chicks have hatched yet. Hubby went out this morning and one has. So it's little things in life. Just see the joy in everyday life and then enjoy that. Don't, like I said, we're all humans. We're all going to have all of the emotions, the whole range. And that's okay. We're human. We're emotive beings. But don't let those other emotions take over and stop you from living.
Okay. That's awesome. All right. Thank you very much, Terri. I'll get my VA to give you the links to all the platforms that I have recorded this on, and you can put your details in there. So if anyone wants to give you their story, so
Beautiful.
You can help
or
them.
Or if anybody's interested in my other books, let me know.
Yeah, as well. And also, yeah, if you could put your books up there as well, and give you details, so that'd be great. So if anyone has any questions or wants to buy the book, then they can do it on those platforms. So thank you so much, Terri, for your time today and the gold nuggets that you've given, and very interesting background. So much appreciated for your time today.
Thanks very much, Scott.
All right, guys, we've been watching the Get Busy Living podcast. I'm Dr. Scott, and I've been hanging out with Terri this morning. And you have a great day, guys.